his classmates, Haruka quickly hides himself behind the bushes. One of the guys in the delinquents group hears something moving in the bushes and becomes suspicious of it. He deduces the exact location where the noise was coming from and, like a villain, slowly moves his hands towards it, making even me, the narrator, feel like I'm about to be violated. Thankfully, when the delinquent moves the bushes away, only a rabbit comes out of it. This leaves the entire delinquent group disappointed, and they walk away hoping to find something interesting to amuse themselves. Haruka is relieved that he was undetected, but he doesn't run away from the forest to be left unseen. Instead, he goes to spy on the delinquent group, even though he himself states that he doesn't want to get involved with the likes of them. The only reason he is spying on them is because he is curious as to why they are here and what they are gossiping about. He stands carefully behind a tree and eavesdrops on their conversation. From what he hears, the topic of the delinquents' conversation is the measurement of their class president's melons. According to them, those chug jugs still stand out even in this isekai world. It's a pretty lame and disappointing conversation, but what else can you expect from a third-grade gang of perverts? Haruka cannot believe that these creeps are the same as ever and recalls how whenever they set their eyes on a female, they make the same trashy, shitty remarks on their clothing and legs. He becomes concerned for the girls though, as there is no law and order in this medieval world. He remembers that their dependable class president is leading the girls and becomes certain that she will teach the delinquents a lesson if they try to cross the line. Anyway, the blonde guy bullies one of his group members for a second because that's what they do, and then subtly mentions having a skill that can help them get girls to do whatever they want. All of them then head back to their classmates, and so Haruka also heads back to his cave, showing no further interest in the people he doesn't care for. For dinner, Haruka cooks mushrooms, again. While the mushrooms are being roasted, he checks his stats menu and finds out that his loner job title has leveled up. It's probably because he hid himself from his classmates. Jokes aside, Haruka wishes to increase his overall base level, which is currently at 3, and wonders if he should start grinding goblins again. He has the Master of None and Blockhead skills and wonders what these two skills even do. After researching them for an entire hour, he discovers that the Master of None skill makes him unable to focus and unable to hone any skills at all. However, it also has its perks. It lets him do other household things pretty well, allowing him to tidy up his cave house even more. On the other hand, the Blockhead skill's name refers to a puppet on a string, meaning that the puppet is useless. Haruka finds this skill to be completely worthless and decides to vent out his anger on the mushrooms by eating all of them at once. He becomes upset once again as he is completely fed up with eating mushrooms over and over and hopes that he could eat at least fish, if not meat, one day. Later at night, when Haruka is about to sleep, he hears the noise of swords clanging and goes out to check who is causing the fuss. He assumes that it's those delinquents, but still goes out to check since it's currently midnight. Much to his surprise, he finds that it's actually the nerd group who are trying to take down a pack of goblins all by themselves. Haruka laughs seeing the nerds struggling for a second and then wonders if he should help them out, to make sure that they do need his help. He first appraises them and finds out that their average base level is 16 and they have way better jobs than he does. As a matter of fact, Haruka is the only guy whose job isn't an actual job. He gets kind of jealous seeing that everyone else has cheat skills, while he's only got the worthless leftover skills. Haruka tells us more about his school and its students. Being one of the top schools in Japan, Haruka's class was full of the best athletes in the entire nation. Not only that, they had the graders, children of celebrities, and the future supermodels. So, it's a mystery to Haruka as to how and why a below average, low-IQ student like him ended up getting into the same school. Anyway, Haruka ends up choosing not to help the nerds because it's pretty typical for nerds to be experts in an isekai world. As he is about to leave the place, his appraisal skill detects a dangerous presence, and he sees that there are 2 goblins who are approaching the nerds behind their backs. Not wanting the nerdy nerds to get injured, Haruka steps up with his stick and takes down both goblins in a matter of seconds. He then turns to the nerds, who didn't even notice that he came here to help them. Haruka gets thanked by everyone, but he fails to give them a reply because he simply has forgotten how to speak with people. So, instead, he leads them to the cave to show off his base and leaves them completely stunned. All of them are amazed to see how well Haruka is doing in this world, even though he is all alone and happily explores around the house. Since they are his guests, Haruka pretends that he didn't see the others coming to this forest, and while serving them tea, he asks them if they came out here alone. The nerds reluctantly reveal that they are all currently on the run. To elaborate, they go back to the very day they got transported into this world, after finding themselves inside of a forest. Most of the students panicked while the nerds discovered the status menu because, well, they are nerds. The delinquents threatened to beat the nerds if they didn't teach them everything as well and got to learn about the status menu as well. The class president kept her composure and asked everyone to calm down, telling them that they shouldn't cause any noise as that could attract the nearby monsters. Perhaps she jinxed it, because at that very moment, a pack of goblins holding wooden clubs attacked them, making even the class president lose her composure. Not only the girls, even the toughest of the toughest, the delinquents lost their *T. Quite unexpectedly, only the nerds stepped up to save everyone's asses and brought out their pre-chosen gear to fight the goblins. The guy advertising McDonald's protected himself and his team with a shield. The guy who handicapped himself by blocking his eye with his hair used his sword. The regular-looking guy hit the goblins with a hammer. And lastly, the typical nerd with the nerdy glasses used magic spells to knock out the goblins. Seeing the nerds doing their part perfectly, the delinquents regained their confidence and stepped up to help the nerds. Both groups worked together and defeated all goblins without any difficulty. The class president played the role of a leader and instructed everyone to move somewhere safer. Soon after, they found a riverside area, and with the nerds' isekai knowledge, they set up camp there. The class president put everyone to work by placing them into different teams, and everything went well as they worked as one well, until they didn't. One of the girls from the self-entitled group demanded to know they had to do all this work. They no longer wanted to help the team and ditched their classmates. And following their footsteps, the delinquents also counted themselves out, leaving the nerds to do all of the work. The class president requested that everyone work together, but nobody listened to her any longer and counted themselves out, telling the president to handle everything alone. The class that came together fell apart in seconds. Still, the president and the nerds didn't give up and kept doing all the work while the others slacked around. They didn't work at all and kept complaining about how boring everything was in this world. When a group of goblins attacked their camp, only the nerds stood up to defend their base. The nerds overworked themselves, but still they kept on going and grinded levels. The leader of the nerds found out that there was a skill called Charm that granted the user control over people. Then there was another skill called Puppeteering, which is pretty self-explanatory. The delinquents picked both of the skills from the list back when everyone was inside the White Room. The girls knew that the delinquents would use those skills on them, so they also leveled themselves up to stand up to the delinquents. However, the delinquents didn't give up so easily. They too leveled up their stats by hunting down goblins at night and discussing their schemes in the dark. The nerds kept a close eye on them and learnt of their plans of creating a harem. Not knowing what to do, they reported everything to the class president, who wondered what they should do to stop the delinquents. First and foremost, she decided to level up her skills as well, because she too is a girl, and decided to deal with the delinquents later. A few days passed, and the delinquents succeeded in unlocking their charm and puppeteer skills. They decided to use that skill on the president, but that ended up badly for them as the president defeated all of them in no time, rendering them unconscious. The nerds came there at that very moment, and one of them used their concealment skill on the delinquent's charm and puppeteer skill to ensure that they never used it again. The nerds exposed the delinquents' forced harem plans to everyone, so everyone unanimously agreed to kick the delinquents out of the camp. But this wasn't the happily ever after the students were expecting it to be. The delinquents came back again and attacked the students at the camp, showing them no mercy at all. They set the camps on fire and left after burning everything down. telling the students that they would be back again to make them suffer once again. The nerds took all the blame on themselves for what happened, which led the self-entitled girls group to point their fingers at them even more. The president defended the nerds, telling everyone that they did nothing wrong, but almost no one took her side and forced the nerds to also leave their unofficial clan. The nerds took off and then came to this forest where Haruka found them and brought them to his house. After listening to this entire story, Haruka is extremely sympathetic towards them and decides to throw a mushroom party to cheer them up. The next day, he spends the entire day with the nerds and realizes that sometimes it's fun not being a nerd. At the end of the day, Haruka is still a solo player, so he bids the nerds farewell, wishing them best of luck on their journey and hands them a bag of mushrooms as a parting gift. After everything about the president, Haruka begins to worry for her as well and decides to check up on her. He explores the forest in search of her and encounters a cobloid that bites his left hand. After beating the cobloid's head with the wooden club several times, Haruka knocks it out and wins the battle. He then continues to explore the place and eventually finds the riverside campsite, which is completely empty. Suddenly, his appraisal skill detects an enemy nearby and even shows him the footprints of the said enemy. Haruka follows the footprints and finds that the footprints are of the self-titled girl groups. He doesn't want to encounter them at all because he knows that he will only end up getting belittled by them. The girls see Haruka's face and chase him, asking him if he isn't friends with the nerds. Although Haruka is on good terms with the nerd group and has traded many comic books with them, he doesn't feel comfortable calling them his friends. Still, he stops, asking the girls why they are looking for them since they were the ones who drove them away. The girls explain, saying that they want to apologize to the nerds because it was for them that they are still alive. They further explain, stating that their survival skills are 0, and without the nerds, they are really struggling in the forest. Haruka doesn't want to sell out the nerds, so instead he decides to teach the entitled girls how to survive on their own. They also beg him to teach them how to survive on their own, which triggers his subjugation skill to activate at that moment, placing all of them under its effect. If I remember correctly, allows the user to command the entities around them. This basically means that he can now command the 3 girls into doing whatever he wants, like making them hunt monsters for him or gather materials for him. Because they are currently under the subjugation effect, they cannot do a single thing without Haruka's command, making him question how he is supposed to cancel it. At that moment, the president comes there and becomes happy to see that Haruka is alive and well. That's it for the second part of this series.